Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Tuesday live stream where we talk about photography, what's been going on, what's new maybe, and also just to catch up on how you guys are doing. I hope everyone's doing well. And for those of you that celebrate Thanksgiving, we have on Thursday, so happy Thanksgiving. I'll be going out to my sister's house as I have been for forever, I guess. Most of my adult life anyway. And it's always a good time, the holidays. And then Friday, the day after, I may be going out with the photo club that's run by David Crooks to see to do some bald eagle type photography. I guess there's a dam or something not far from here where there's lots of bald eagles. So I'm gonna try and make that. Still not sure. Depends how I'm feeling after Thursday. Uh, and let's see. Let me check in who's here real quick. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me okay. Randy, oh my goodness, you're up. Awesome. Good to see you. Marsha, always good to see you from sunny Florida. Oh, I'm so jealous right now. We're going to get well below freezing tonight, like 26 degrees. And of course, my furnace is still on the fritz. And the problem is it'll run for a day and then it'll stop. And then I have to call somebody to come in, and it's like 2, 3 days between each call. So this will be basically the fourth or fifth visit. I had a new oil tank installed the end of October. Now we're coming up the end of November, and I haven't had consistent heat. It's kind of funny. Yesterday, I turned on the shower, and it was warm, and I said, "Okay, let me get in," because usually when I get in when it's warm, I usually have to turn it down as as the shower goes on. And man, it just got colder and colder to the end where I was like ice cold. So I called the furnace guy again, and they're frustrated. I'm frustrated. So I called a different company this time to come and fix it. And the first guy said, if it's something I did, I'll pay for it, whatever, but I can't do anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'll call someone else. And if it turns out to be something the other guy did, he'll pay for it. If it turns out to be something else, then obviously I have to pay for it. But uh, at this point, I don't care. I need some heat. It's cold. I'm running space heaters in individual rooms. Anyway, first world problems, right? I mean, I'm not freezing to death and my pipes aren't bursting. I'm just uncomfortable. um, let's see what else is here. John follows, Serge, Robert's here, Lasse's here, Music Sound Gear, Plato, Jonas, Annette, good to see you from Sweden. And every time I think of Sweden, two things come to mind. One is something I think I learned in college, is Sweden has the most beautiful women in the world, because back in the day, the Vikings used to pillage different places and take all the most beautiful women to Sweden. And that's why Sweden has all these beautiful women. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what comes to my mind. And then the other thing is, I think it was that movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and Jamie Lee Curtis acted like a Swedish, bar girl or something. I can't remember exactly, but she was doing something Swedish and had this fake Swedish accent. It's really a lot of fun. So anyway, those are the images come to mind when I think of Sweden. And let's see. If I missed anyone here. It's the usual group. David, hey David, how are you? I I got all my film bagged up here. Where is it? Yeah, I'm gonna go down to District Camera today after the live stream. I got some 120 film and I don't know, 4 rolls of 35 millimeter. that I need to get developed, and then I can use that scanner you gave me. Can't wait. So we'll see. It takes a while to develop, like a week for the 35, and then takes longer for the 120 for some reason. Um, let's see. Coingo Dam. Yes, that's it, Marcia. It is. It's Coingo Dam. And let me scroll up. Oh, yeah, David's confirmed it's 27 degrees F. So that's, you know, 5 degrees below freezing. Um, so yeah, it's going to be cold today and tomorrow, and then it might warm up slightly, like above freezing. Hopefully for Friday, we'll have good weather. And John, you'd say good to see you. Oh, 67 in California. I would love that. God, 67. Like I said, as soon as I'm the oldest one in the family, I'm going to be south of here where the winters are very short and it doesn't ever get that cold. But not Florida south because that's hurricane territory, but get my sleeping bag out. And it's -4 Celsius. Wow. So about 24, 28 Fahrenheit, I guess. That's a little bit cooler than here right now, but yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. And oh, Dave said you can do the black and white. Let me see what I got. That would be awesome, actually. I'll just go to your house. Let's see. This is I think this is black and white. No, this is Portra. Portra 160 400 T Max. I got a 400 T Max and 400 Max. This film expired like 10 years ago. I mean, it's really old. This one I bought new, but so there's 2 rolls of black and white, and then HP5 Plus 400. But this is not C41 developing. Can you develop this one? No, we'll see. Maybe I'll come over anyway. I haven't seen you since the last photo walk, and then it was brief, right? We haven't like hung out. Okay. And then Jeff says I should go. Okay, Conowingo Dam. I'm gonna go. It's like 6 in the morning or something. You know, it's always really early, and it's about an hour and a half drive. But I should go. The T Max and the you should be able to do the other 400, right? This is 400 because these are both C41. The HP5 is not, and then yeah, this is a regular Kodak Max 400. Well, anyway, I'll just bring it all. Oh, I got to learn how to do it myself if I'm going to start shooting film a lot. You know, it's not that hard. I've done it before, but that was like college days. But I used to just, you know, it's like 2 or 3 chemicals and a little bit of timing and agitation, and you're good to go, I guess, right? Oh, you can't do C41. Oh, that's interesting. I thought C41 was pretty standard. What do I know? Yeah, this is definitely C41. So I'll take that in. But the T-Max is not C41? I thought it was. Oh, I guess not. This is not C41. Why? I don't know if I can buy this again. They charge more if it's not C41. Anyway, I was having a lot of fun. You'd have been so proud of me, David, when I went on the photo walk to the whatchamacallit, the DC Arboretum. I finished off those rolls of film that I was telling you about in my GW 690 and my Trip 35. And then I just rolled up the Pen F film. I still got 10 shots left on my Nikon. Oh, but I didn't have the batteries charged up to use it because that one you need batteries for the focusing motor and the metering. It's an N75. Good little camera though. Um, and then pick up a roll of Ilford XP2 to try while you're at. Okay. Let me write it down because I'll forget. Oh, the other thing I'm doing at the camera store is two good things happen. Well, one good thing happened. The other one we'll have to see. Well, let me tell you the good thing first. I found my teleconvert, what's it called? Focal reducer. This thing has been missing. This is the, these focal reducers that you can adapt like vintage glass and then mount it to your Micro Four Thirds or mirrorless camera. I bought this thing 3 years ago, maybe. And, it adds a stop of light to the lens. It cost me $180 or something. I mean, it wasn't cheap. And I haven't been able to find this thing for years. I mean, I used it a little bit when I first got it, and then it just vanished. And I finally found it. So I'm gonna take this out and use it for a little bit. I mean, I'm not really into these focal reducers so much, and that's why I stopped using it when I first got it, because I was like, I didn't see the point really. But I can change my mind. I might really like it now. But I found it because I was boxing up all of my Nikon gear, which yeah, I'm gonna get rid of all this crap. This is my 20mm f1.8, my 70-200, my 85 1.8, and then of course this beast here, the 150-600, and then my D750. I'm gonna take all this stuff down and sell it to the local camera store, District Camera. And then I don't know if I should get store credit or just take the cash. You get a little bit more with store credit. And if I do that, I'll have maybe enough money to at least get the 100-400 or pay most. I'm guessing about $1,500 in there, right? Just a wild guess. Or I can get a 300mm f4. They have a used one there, but they want a little bit too much for it. They're asking like $2,300 for a used one, and I think on eBay they're closer to $1,800. Or just get the standard 40-150 f2.8, right? But I'm pretty happy with my kit 40-150. I don't know if I'd really use the 40-150 2.8 because it doesn't have any more reach. It's just a little faster, which can come in handy, of course. But I'm thinking 100-400 or 300 f4, right? Some quality glass, but or trade some more stuff in. I can get rid of my XT30 and what else? Maybe my Zeiss glass. Get rid of a few more things, and I might have enough to get a GFX. large format sensor camera. They're selling it for like 4,500 with a kit lens. I don't know. Uh, XP2 is C41 also. Okay. And Jess says, get the 100 to 400. See, the thing with the 100 to 400 is I already have the 75 to 300. And yeah, it's not quite as sharp as the 100 to 400, but it's almost there, right? And it's not really much slower in terms of aperture. It's about the same speed. But if I go to a 300 f4, we're talking about 1 2/3 stop or 1.5 stop difference. And certainly the sharpest lens I think Olympus makes. So I've heard. I've never heard any complaints about the 300 f4. It's just a bit pricey. Um, so yeah, I don't know. But the 100 to 400 is sharper than the 75 to 300, but not quite as sharp as the 300 f4. But it's certainly a stop and a half slower, give or take, right? So I don't know. Or just take the money and pay for the plumbing and all the other crap I need to get done around here. Anyway, um, hey, Michael's here, Barry's here. Good to see you. And it's 22:20. Oh, okay. So that's not too bad. You're 12 hours ahead of me. And I just finished. I finished that review on the T Artisan 7mm that last week, and I just finished one this morning on the microphones. I still got to review this device, and they sent this to me. I don't know, 2 weeks ago, so I'm a little bit behind. This is just a card reader, but it's a good one. So typically, the stuff I review is stuff that I'm going to use myself. I got a request to review the 40mm macro, the TR 7 Artisans, I think 40mm macro. I'm debating that one. I mean, I guess I could, right? And then also a 5-inch, very bright touchscreen monitor, which is mainly for video stuff. A lot of you guys aren't into videos, so I don't know if I never use those things for myself in video. I mean, they're kind of handy for other things in photography, like for macro work. It's nice to have a separate, larger screen to do critical macro work. But typically, when you're in the field, you're not lugging around and monitor with batteries and cabling and all that stuff, right? It's not. It's just not practical to do photography using an external monitor. In a studio, sure, why not? But then why limit yourself to a 5-inch monitor, right? Just use a regular monitor. Um, so these little 5 and 7-inch monitors are primarily for video work where you have a rig and you have it attached. Then video work, it makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I don't use it in my video work because I'm on a gimbal, right? I can't use a monitor and a gimbal at the same time. They say you can, but I ain't carrying all that. I'm good enough with the screen. Um, and I think I missed a question up earlier. Let me get this one real quick before I miss this one. Do you think the EM1 Mark III is worth 600 more than the EM1 Mark II? Looking for a new camera. If it's only six, and by only I'm being 600 more, I would get it. And for these reasons, not and if these reasons don't mean anything to you or don't have any value, then it's not worth 600 more. But the EM1 Mark III, I really like the handheld high-res shot mode. I don't use it very often, but time to time when I do, I'm always been very happy with the results. Same thing with the Live ND. It's very nice to have when you want to use it. Again, not something I use very often, but time to time I use it. And the other thing that's less gimmicky but very significant, right, is the face detect. The face detect autofocus on the EM1 Mark III is way better than the EM1 Mark II or EM5 Mark III. Just hands down, way better. So if you take pictures of people's faces a lot, or if you want people's faces in focus at distance, right? And I'll give you an example. If I'm more than 6 feet away, 2 meters from an EM1 Mark II or an EM5 Mark III, face detect gets a little spotty, right? 2 to 3 meters is about it with face detect on the EM1 Mark II. That's going to be fairly reliable. In a regular setting, in a studio, it's pretty spot on. But in a regular setting, you're out doing events or taking pictures of people, at picnics and stuff. Yeah, 6 to 9 feet, 2 to 3 meters. That is it. The M1 Mark III, you can go closer to 10 meters, like 30 feet away. They can be just this little dot in the screen practically, and the M1 Mark III will find it and lock on and take the picture. So the autofocus, in that respect, I can distinctively measure that it's much better. Now, it may be much better in other ways in terms of autofocus, but I have no way of measuring it, and it's not a type of photography that I do, like sports action type stuff. It might be much better in the continuous autofocus for sports action as well, but I don't know. But I can tell you that the face detect definitely is. And those are the three things to me that stand out on the M1 Mark III. There's little things that it can do also, like you can charge the camera through the USB-C port, and you can also run the camera off an external power supply. Now you need a quality 60 plus watt power supply, 60 or 90 watt. I bought the Anchor that was recommended by Olympus. I did a review on it, but if you get a power brick that's compatible with the camera, you can run the camera off the power brick as well. And that would be useful for like time lapse photography, long exposure type photography where you're like astrophotography where you're shooting for hours sometimes, right? So that's something that can be significant as well for long time photography, long stuff, right? Overnight hours type. Uh, and then of course using it as a webcam, which is a total waste of an EM1 Mark III, but you could virtually uh, run the camera all day long as a webcam on the power supplies. But don't do that. That's really a waste of the capabilities. So really it's four things now, right? Powering it externally, the autofocus for face detect is good, and I assume it's better in everything else. The tracking's still not that good. Don't use the AF tracking, but the CAF uh, is good. And then handheld high res and live ND. So all of those things really, in my mind, are worth the extra $600 or worth the extra money for the M1 Mark III over the M1 Mark II. I think I got offered like $250 at the camera store for my EM1 Mark II. So I said, I'll just keep it. That's cheaper than a webcam that wouldn't even do as good a job as my EM1 Mark II is doing, right? So I've delegated my EM1 Mark II basically to be a webcam now, because that's what I'm using now. So those would be the reasons I bought the M1 Mark III over, when upgrading. So I'll leave it up to you if you think those things are worth it, but I think they are. Um, nah, I'm using meters. Well, I've said this before. I always thought the metric system was the way to go. I still have a hard time thinking in terms of like weights and measurements. Like in terms of metric, like if I say somebody's 6 foot tall, it just immediately I have a picture of how tall that person is. But if you say they're like 60 centimeters, I'm like, I have to kind of think it through. It doesn't come automatically. But distance, right? I'm thinking, um, I'm getting good at measuring distance in terms of meters, and I like to use that because it's just it's used a lot in our cameras, right? We talk a lot about we use a lot of metrics in our cameras, like millimeters, right? In terms of focal length, and a lot of the apps that you look at, everything is measured in meters, the sensor size, etc. So that's why I use it. And Rick says, I use a 7-inch external monitor on street shots in London when using an older Olympus digital camera needed to properly see the composition versus. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, in photography, using an external monitor can be handy, but it's just kind of cumbersome, right? You have to really plan on going out and using a monitor. It's not like something I just grab and go with whenever I'm ready to go out and start shooting, whenever inspiration hits. Um, oh, I just answered that one. And Casper has the 100-400. I know he does a lot of great work with that lens. I've seen it on the Facebook and a few times in the forum, which hasn't been getting a lot of action lately. I check it time to time to make sure there's no spam. The spam has been ridiculous in that thing. Um, I thought I saw a question way up here early on. Here it is from Serge. Hi Rob, on the Olympus EM5 Mark II, is it possible to use the super control panel in video mode? I don't think so. You only have that side control, right? I forget what they called it, the live control panel, not the super control panel. On the EM5 Mark III, and I think the EM1 Mark III, I know definitely the EM1 Mark III, you can use the super control panel with the video mode, but the EM5 Mark II, I'll just double check because I know how to get into it on the other cameras. Let's see. I was thinking about trading this guy in too. Why isn't there? Oh, okay. So we'll put it in movie mode. Because you said specifically video mode. So if I click the OK button, I get the live control panel. Let me go into the menu, display, control settings. I'm just going to turn the super control panel on everything. And then in movie mode, okay, let me try again. Yeah, no, you cannot. You only get the live control panel. Okay. Now, if you're in a photo mode like PASM, and whatever settings you make in the super control panel will apply to the video mode with the exception of the video resolution. So if you're like in 1080 30p, it'll record at that frame rate or at that frame rate, right? But the settings that you use, like the color settings, like if you set the highlight shadow or if you set the picture modes to like an art filter, those things. So what you do is you put the camera in aperture priority or program mode, right? It doesn't matter because when you're in a photo mode and you hit the record button, It's going to record in program mode, regardless of what photo mode you're in. But you can control the color settings like white balance and picture mode, like art modes or monochrome, when you're in a photo mode through the super control panel. There's no reason to do it that way. You might as well go into movie mode and set it. But so the answer is kind of. You can kind of use super control panel when you're recording movies. If you're in movie mode on the mode dial, you cannot use the super control panel. You have to use the live control. Okay. That's interesting. Using a brick on the M1 does not charge. I've never checked to see if it charges the camera while it's being run. I don't think it'll charge. Yeah, I think that's same on the M1 Mark III. It won't charge the battery the same time as it's running the camera. It's going to run the camera. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But it makes sense that it wouldn't do both at the same time. When I adjust the aspect ratio on the M1 Mark II, JPEG is adjusted ratio while the RAW thumbnail is 4:3 ratio. Yes. RAW RAW is the idea is you always capture everything that the camera records. So when you open a RAW file in Olympus Workspace and you selected a different aspect ratio, say 16:9, in the RAW file, you will see an outline of the 16:9 crop, but you will have the entire image. So it pre-crops the raw image in Olympus Workspace, but you can always change it back to 4:3 and get the full image. So yeah, it crops the JPEGs, physically crops them down, cuts off the top, bottom, sides, whatever it needs to get to that aspect ratio on a JPEG. But in a RAW file, all it does is add the EXIF data to tell Olympus Workspace that this image is cropped at 16:9, and it'll show you an outline of the crop. But you can always go back to 4:3. And oh, there's more here. But when I open in Photoshop Elements, it's adjusted. So yeah, it's not a bug in Photoshop Elements. In the EXIF data of the raw image is the aspect ratio that you chose in the camera. So Photoshop Elements apparently is respecting that EXIF data, but you should be able to go back to a 4:3 ratio in Photoshop Elements. I'm not 100% on that because I don't have Elements. But if you open that same raw image in Olympus Workspace, you'll see the full image. And you probably just said that. No, you didn't say that. So open it up in Workspace and you should see the full image. And you might be able to readjust it in Photoshop Elements, but I don't know for sure. And then there's more. Barry says, further to my M1 Mark II woes last week, things gone from bad to worse as the piece of plastic has come off the SD card and damaged the contacts card. Or could be an expensive repair. Not. Yeah. Yeah, half of my, well, not half. I have a few cards like that where the little plastic fine pins in between have broken. And I had one get stuck in the memory card slot. I was able to fortunately get it out with tweezers. On my oldest memory card, and I still use it. It's not this one, but I just scraped the plastic pins off because a couple of them started breaking off. So I just scraped them all off, and so that memory card, as old as it still works. Doesn't have any of the plastic in it anymore because I didn't want more breaking off into the camera like's happening to you. The Sony Tough cards don't have those little plastic pins in between either. They just have a flat surface. So they've eliminated that failure point altogether. Those Sony Tough cards, people give it some flack sometimes, but I found them to be actually, because someone had one and I looked at it and I said, wow, that is tough, man. It felt really solid in the hands. Just curious, what dog food do you serve? Right now, I am feeding her wilderness something. I can't remember, but it's a grain-free thing. And when that's done, I have a bag of Science Diet, uh, which is, high quality. Well, I don't know, it's expensive. But somebody got rid of their dog and they had this big bag of Science Diet. So I took it. And then when that's done, I'm going to go to Rachel Ray dog food. So that's the routine. I go, I take the path of least money in almost everything I do. Not photography, apparently, but um, I take the cheapest route I can because I have to save anywhere I can, uh, as we all do, I'm sure. Oh, David, hey, how's it going? And Annette says the 300 f4 very sharp. Yeah, I'm just I just don't do a lot of wildlife photography is the thing. So it would be the kind of lens like, I have that Bazooka 150 to 600 for my Nikon. Rarely used it. So that's why I'm a little leery of getting the 300 f4 is you spend all that money and then only use it a couple of times a year. Um, I'd rather save that money and buy a Pen F2 if it ever comes out or whatever the WoW camera's coming. Okay, so on the EM5 Mark III, what we were talking about earlier, it comes up on that as well. Okay. Honestly, I 90% of the time I just record video in program mode. I don't try to get all fancy with shutter angle and all these different log profiles. I just use the auto mode. The only exception being is in my paid work. I do shoot now with my Panasonic S5. I've done the last 4 or 5 jobs. I use the Panasonic S5, and I shoot in Panasonic Vlog, and that does make a difference. Um, yeah, the video out of that Panasonic is amazing. And oh yeah, yeah. I have a link down to, just below this video to the my affiliate link for DxO. So it's 50% off. I think it's like 110 bucks now for Photolab 5. I use Photolab 4, but Photolab 5 right now, full version, is Photolab 5 Elite, not the don't get the regular, get the Elite version. That is 50% off, as well as everything else. I didn't see much use for the Nick collection. I didn't, I'm not into black and white, so the silver effects and all that was, I'm happy with the film pack that I got. I got the film pack 4 or 5. I forget what version. I'm happy enough with that. Uh, but the Photolab 4 or Photolab 5 now is really, I have not seen any. Well, let me rephrase this. Compared to Lightroom can't touch it in terms of final output of a raw image to JPEG. When you edit your image and export it out, yeah, nothing can touch Photolab. Uh, and I've tried the Topaz products and I've tried Lightroom, and these two uh, just don't compare. I even tried the other one, uh, when I did that comparison. That was the closest to Photolab, and I think it was much cheaper. So that may be a viable option. I can't remember the name of it now. Uh, I signed up for their affiliate program and everything. They offered to send me free stuff. I just haven't gone yet because I downloaded the free trials from them, and it did a great job. But Photolab 4 was better, so I haven't even thought about it since then. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, DxO is a good deal now, and I can highly recommend it. And Music Sangre says, I really don't understand why Olympus made the M1 Mark III out of plastic. They don't make their pro lenses out of plastic. That's the only thing that keeps me from buying the Mark. The M1 Mark III is not made of plastic. It's the same build quality as the M1 Mark II, if not better, supposedly. They supposedly improved the grip. In particular, the glue for the grip is better on the M1 Mark III. But other than that, it's an all metal magnesium alloy, quality pro gear. But let's see. Okay, so the battery door and the memory door, they are plastic, but so it's the same on the M1 Mark II. And of course the flaps here, but I mean there is a lot of plastic, right? The plastic on the live view, but these are things that are plastic on every camera that I've ever seen. But the body, yeah, that's definitely metal because it's cold. Yeah. So yeah, I don't that's definitely metal. I don't think that's right. And oh, hey Lauren. Yeah, the G95. That is a smoking good deal. Uh, if you want a micro four thirds camera, that's a smoking good deal. But so is the EM10 Mark IV is also selling for $699 right now with the lens. Uh, and I would get the EM10 Mark IV over the G95. But they're in terms of image quality and everything, they're pretty much the same, and features are pretty much the same. Performance, all of that. The edge that the G95 has is in the video. Even though the 4K is cropped, so actually I would say the M10 Mark IV has the advantage because it doesn't crop the 4K video, if I remember correctly. So even the 4K video is better. Um, but that lens 12 to 60 that comes with the G95, that's way better than the little power zoom kit lens that Olympus gives with their EM10 Mark IV. I mean, it's a fine lens, this little pancake kit zoom, but it ain't no 12 to 60, that's for sure. It's not as wide or as long or as fast, right? Oh, maybe about the same speed, but uh, it's probably not as sharp either. That 12 to 60 gets a lot of good reviews. So if you want to buy a Micro Four Thirds system with a great starting lens, that's the way to go. But I think for the camera body, I would prefer the M10 Mark IV for being smaller, lighter, probably a better autofocus system, and for casual video with the full sensor 4K instead of a cropped. Um, okay, Logan is here. Hello, and Arthur, good to see you. Um, And Andrew, I keep missing questions here. I want to play with different color profiles on my Pen F. Is there a way to import a profile into that camera? Or do I have to manually create it? If you use Olympus Workspace, you can create profiles. I haven't tried this yet. I know you can definitely, and I have done this, you can definitely offload your profiles from your camera into Workspace through the camera app and load those profiles back in later. But I don't know if you can create profiles in the editing part of Workspace, save those, and import them into the camera. I don't think you can do that. But you can definitely, let's say you got 10 different profiles you want to use, you can save them with different names in Workspace and then load them back up later into your camera. So you can do that. And you can even share those profiles with other people that have a Pen F. They can use that same file that gets saved, and you can share that with people, and they can use the color profiles. I haven't ever shared anything, but I definitely have saved color profiles to Workspace. You're just saving the settings in the camera, but it saves all the profiles as well. But yeah, you do have to manually create it first, and then you can save them and recall them later through Olympus Workspace. And Melvin, hello. My first time subscribing to anyone. I've just recently traded all my Canon gear for Olympus 4/3. Watching your tutorials on YouTube has been a great help. Oh, thank you. Thank you, and welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here. And I always try to answer any questions during the stream if I can. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask during a live stream. And of course, I have my forum, which I check every couple of days. You can leave things there. And also my Flickr group. There's a good community there. So there's lots of ways to get help. And the Micro Four Thirds community is awesome. I mean, I'm sure all communities are really good, but I have an affinity for Micro Four Thirds community. All of you guys have made my experience with Micro Four Thirds all the better. And Corner says, just had to buy an almost new Pen F. Now I need to get rid of one or two of my other cams. Too many being, yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, I boxed up my Nikon gear. I'm debating boxing up my XT30, and honestly, some of my Olympus gear, maybe the EM5 Mark II, which I'm not really using, and my 12mm f2, and then some of the lenses, other lenses like the TT Artisan 7.5. I don't really need that because I have the fisheye from Olympus, and the 50mm f.095, great lens, but I don't really need it because I'd rather use my Olympus 50mm 1.8 or 45mm 1.8 rather than using the 50.95. Yeah, it's tough. So many cameras sitting there. I mean, my EM10 and my PL8 are damaged beyond repair. They work, but the battery door's broken. Barry, I think, knows what I'm talking about. And my Pen PL8, the screen is bent. It still works, but it won't close all the way. I got lots of little cameras. I'm definitely going to get rid of my Panasonic GX85. Somebody offered me $200 for that thing. I'm like, $200, I'll take it because I'm not using it. It's a fun little camera the couple times I took it out, but I really bought it because I wanted the lens that came with it, the 12-32, which I like a lot. And the M10 Mark II is a wonderful build of a camera being metal, as is the PL8 model. Only thing missing is the ability to choose minimum shutter speed. Thus, I need to be in S mode. Yes. It is missing one or two things that you would get with an EM1, but it's about 99% there. Seriously, the EM10 Mark II is like 99% of an EM1 Mark II in terms of features. It has just about everything. Oh, I guess it was your SD card. I knew I saw one like in real life. It must have been yours. But yeah, fast read and write speeds. That's what I'm going to test on this little card reader. I'll try and crank this out today if I can. This shouldn't be a long review, like a 5 or 6 minute video. It's just a card reader, right? All we have to do is test it, how fast it is. Um, and it says, do your homework on Rachel Ray's dog food. I heard something bad about it, contaminated. Oh, well, I haven't heard anything about that, but I'll look. And Stanislav says, I prefer downloading files via USB cable. Insertion and removing and pulling flash card, especially UHS-2, can potentially damage either the card or the. Yeah, I mean, wear and tear, right, of removing and inserting the SD card can be um, a problem. But I would argue that you're shifting the wear and tear from the SD card slot to the USB port. Um, so depending which camera you have, the USB port is pretty important. It's because it's used for like using remote timers and things, remote shutters, uh, updating the camera for the firmware. So the USB port is pretty critical. I mean, they're all critical. The SD card, if your SD card port's broken, then you can't take pictures. And if the USB port's broken, you're not going to be able to update the firmware, right? So I think a broken USB port is more tolerable than a broken SD card slot. But like I said, the argument is you're shifting the wear and tear from one part of the camera to another. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Poor Ellie only get. Now, to be fair, Rick, I do cook for her sometimes too. Like I made her eggs this morning. I cooked her some scrambled eggs. And every now and then I'll give her some fresh organic vegetables. Not vegetables, but lettuce and things, some real greens. So I don't feed her just dog food because they say if you mix like legitimate food about 3 times a week um, into your dog's diet, they tend to be more healthy and live longer. But it's just one YouTube video I watched. I don't know if it's true or not, but I said, well, it's not hurting her, and she thinks she's getting an extra treat or something. So it's a lot of fun for both of us. Okay, there is a particular Purina. I think it's Purina One. That's supposed to be really good. That's what my sister uses. I think is Purina One. Um, so when I finish everything I got, and it's going to take a while. I mean, we're talking probably 2, 3 months before I'm out of dog food. I'll switch to Purina One, I think. Um, you're thinking of selling your yeah, if you can get any money for it, just sell it. You'll never use it if you have a Pen F. I would agree with that. I mean, you might only get like $50 for it or something, like some minuscule amount, but uh and Lauren's adding the G95 is weatherproof and has an SD door and good build quality, might be a little heavier. Also more advanced camera. I would argue if it's more advanced or not, but I was considering it to get to 12 to 60, but that 12 to 60, that by itself, I mean, that's more than half the cost of the camera is that lens by itself, right? I mean, all things being equal, you can get the one with the nicer lens, and you'll be better off if that's the only lens you're ever going to buy. Um, the Star Trek mug, it's drying in the dish rack. I got this new Emory mug. Emory, I think University. I didn't buy it because it said Emory on it. I just like the feel of this mug and the color. Um, and it's the right size. Puts 10 ounces of coffee. So I like this mug. Like I said, I don't care about the emery on the front. And it's got that right color like clay, right? Kind of that clay color. So that's why I like it. And and again, it reminds me of archaeologists when I use a mug like this, because archaeologists, all they find are pots, right? They always find these clay pots wherever they go. Nothing else survives, but a clay pot is forever. Because, so like in thousands of years, um, assuming this doesn't get destroyed, somebody might find this and say, huh, so this is what humans did thousands of years ago. They went to Emory University. Anyway, or that's what this human did thousands of years ago. They must have went to Emory University because they have a ceramic mug. Anyway, I'm just rambling. Uh, when I downloaded my RAW files from Olympus to my PC, every time I want to open the ORF file shot in portrait orientation, the image is shown in landscape orientation instead of rotated. That might be a setting in the software. If you look in the settings and preferences, somewhere in there, you can have it look for the EXIF data to rotate the screen. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it. I'm sure I've seen it. Uh, buried in the settings somewhere is a way for it to automatically rotate the image to respect the orientation that the camera used, I think. And it says, looks like the G95 might feel a bit bulkier than the EM5 Mark III, but not by much. Alas, I got too many cameras, but selling a G95 at 200 over cost of a lens is tempting. I know. You know what's tempting, Lauren, is the Nikon Z5 right now. It's $999, body only. $999 for a full frame Nikon, right? That's pretty tempting. I mean, I got my Panasonic S5, so I'm not craving gear right now for full frame. But if I were looking for a full frame camera, the Z5 would be pretty tempting. And 8-Bit Ed is asking, would you use DxO as a replacement for Lightroom? I like those. But my use of them is down to quite a bit. If I can buy one instead of renting, would be nice. Okay, I'm going to give you the short answer is yes, you can use DxO as a replacement for Lightroom. The long answer is no, because the data, I don't know, if Photolab 5 supposedly has better photo management, like being able to find files and organize them. So I can't speak to that because I use version 4, but the data asset management side of Lightroom is pretty much the best I've ever seen, right? Of any software. Most of them don't even have it. Like Photolab 4 doesn't even have photo management. And For that, I can't do it. The other thing is the Photoshop side, right? We have Lightroom and then we have the Photoshop. The Photoshop side is extremely powerful and does things that I haven't seen any other software be able to do. Specifically for my professional work, I do a lot of blending. I'll import 4 or 5 images, stack them, align them, and do manual blending. Uh, and I can do this, and the workflow for doing that is extremely efficient when you're doing a lot of images. And no other software I know can do it as efficiently. Yeah, something like Affinity, right? Has stacking, focus stacking, blending, layers, all of that. But the workflow is extremely awkward if you're doing more than a few images at a time. For example, I do property, right? Real estate, commercial property, and I take 200 or 300 photos, which consist of maybe 43, effectively 43 different images, right? So it's about 6 to 1. So I'm taking like 6 pictures for every one shot, for every one scene that I'm going to be using. And being able to do that between Lightroom and Photoshop, the workflow is extremely efficient. And I can't do that in anything else. I certainly cannot do layers in Photolab 4 or Photolab 5. You cannot stack images. You can't do HDR. There's a lot of things you can't do in Photolab 4. But if you're just processing, you go on a photo walk here and there and you download your images and you want to edit them individually, nothing beats Photolab 4 in terms of output. In fact, what I do now is when I get my 200 or 300 photos from a photo job, I import them using Lightroom and adding all the keywords and tags and stuff. But then I process them in Photolab 4 and export them as DNG files. And then I import those DNG files to Lightroom, the 240 some images, I import those into Lightroom. And then when I'm in Lightroom, that's when I start doing my layering and processing and have that whole workflow. So for me, I've added another layer to my processing, but the image results are far superior to what I was able to do uh, without Photolab 4. So now that I have Photolab 4, it processes everything to a DNG file. I import those DNG files to Lightroom, and then from Lightroom, I carry on my workflow. So I have to have both, regardless. I will never shoot with Lightroom all by itself anymore. I always use Photolab 4 to process the images. So if you're processing images one at a time, yeah, you can forget about Lightroom. You don't need it. And just keep track of the photos by chronologically, by, folder. Just to give you an idea, let's see. Where's my. So I have it chronologically, right? 2021, fourth quarter, and then by date, and then each folder chronologically, and then I add a title to that folder so I can quickly find what I want and not have to try to remember which folder has what photos. I can just look at the folder here. So like here's the DC Arboretum. Here's the T Artisans fisheye testing I did. This was a photo job I did. These were photo walks. This was another photo job. You can organize things yourself. You don't need Lightroom, right, to organize and find your photos, but it does make it a lot easier. So let's go to my photo job, for example, like this one I just did. You'll notice that I have 2 folders here. Let me let this load in, but you can see I have a folder called DXO, and DXO, these are all of the processed images in DXO, and then I import these in the Lightroom and do my rest of my workflow. So that's what I do now. So that's the long answer. Short answer, yeah, no problem. You can get rid of Lightroom. You just have to think of a way to manage your photos. But anyway, that was a long explanation. Hopefully that helped help you make a decision. Yeah, and David's saying the same thing because of the asset management. He's in the same boat I am. It's hard to, if I didn't do work professionally and needed all that, I could get rid of Lightroom, but I can't. Uh, I have to use Lightroom because of the Photoshop side and the workflow. The asset management I can do on my own, like I showed you chronologically, and then uh, folders. Arrow does things by Wi-Fi. That's interesting. That's slow. At least the times I've tried it, it's extremely slow. And I've been using, well, my use case is different, but I've never had a problem with a memory card slot, other than a couple times that, yeah, I had to get the tweezers to get something out, and Scott has a question. Best choice: EM1 Mark III, 1499, EM1X, 1699. Which has the grip, or wait for a new WoW camera? I'd wait for the WoW camera. Uh, 1,500 bucks, 1,700 bucks. That's not a small amount. That could easily go to whatever camera's coming out. Um, I would just wait. I mean, the WoW camera, let's say, is 2,000. You know, it's going to be hard to, because if all I had was my EM10 Mark II right now, I would wait for the WoW camera. It doesn't make any sense because the EM10 Mark II, or any of its siblings from that generation, right? The PL8, the EM5 Mark II, take like 99% of the quality picture as the M1 Mark III. It just doesn't have all those fancy pants features, right? Or some of them. I mean, the EM5 Mark II, you have high res shot mode on a tripod. You don't need live ND. You can just put a real ND filter on your lens. I mean, I don't see any reason to upgrade right now when a WoW camera is right around the corner, supposedly. So, uh, now Ben Chappell is going to do a review on the EM1X. Now he has an astrophotography type perspective on it, but that is his favorite camera now, and he has the M1 Mark III, the Mark II, the Mark One. I mean, he's got a lot of Olympus cameras, and he likes that one the best for astrophotography. But I'm sure he's going to talk about other things. So he has a review on that coming out. But me personally, I went if I had to choose between those two cameras right now, I would get the M1 Mark III and buy the grip separately, maybe, because it's just more compact, right? And has the better autofocus. Uh, well, I take that back. I don't know how good the autofocus is on the M1X compared to the M1 Mark III. I know the M1 Mark III is better than the M1 Mark II, but I don't know about the M1X. But I would still get the M1 Mark III for the Starry Sky AF feature, the Live ND, the handheld high res shot. I don't think the EM1X has any of that. It just has a grip and dual processing and heat pipe for cooling. So it's got some interesting features that are unique to that camera. But for my use case, the M1 Mark III is a better deal. But if I didn't have it now, I would wait for a WoW camera, definitely. And Andy says, hi, new to your channel, liking the M1 Mark 1 and Mark 2 and EPL5, Lightroom, and efficient workflow are my weaknesses. Yeah, workflow is always, um, it's going to be different for everybody. Most people I think can work chronologically, and that's very intuitive, right? But but if you start managing thousands of photos, you have to start thinking of another way to organize those, and that's why I started adding names to each individual folders of what's in it, right? Like I showed earlier. Uh, in terms of organizing photos, that's about as granular as you can get without using some sort of dedicated asset management like Lightroom. So don't sweat it. Just work chronologically. Make sure you add keywords. Even if you're not sure what keyword to use, just put something. And then over time, you'll start uh, coming up with your own method or methodology and workflow. If you're really not sure, or you really want to get it right from the beginning, which doesn't hurt, uh, you can buy a book called The Dam Book. It's called DAM Book, right? I forget who writes it, but he is the authority on data asset management. Now, if you're referring to workflow in terms of how to start work editing your photos, not talking about data asset management, then that's another subject, right? If you're talking about editing your photos, there's a basic workflow that you can work with. Um, I like to adjust the exposure first, and then I do any kind of generally, what's my workflow? I do optical corrections, then I do exposure, and then I start working with sharpness, right? And noise, and then I start working with color and white balance. So I kind of do it in that order, um, because if you start with optical corrections and exposure, at that point, you and noise, sharpness and noise, right? So you got those three things out of the way. Then at that point, all you have to do is work with the color side. If you want to go black and white, or if you want to go color, you've got the three core things out of the way. Those things are not going to change whether you go black and white or color, generally speaking. Um, and that's my general editing workflow. But everybody's different, right? You have to kind of go with how your brain works and how your brain is wired in terms of developing a workflow that's intuitive for you. And that may mean going to a different software. Lightroom is not the only one, right? Uh, so uh, that's my advice for asset management chronologically, and label your folders and use Lightroom and keywords. And then for editing, exposure, uh, noise, sharpness, and then go into color, black and white. Work with your colors and white balance from there. T Artisans does not have a profile specifically for the fisheye, but if you saw the video, I did show it. It does have a very specific fisheye barrel distortion slider, and I dialed that into about 60 uh, for the T Artisans lens, and it comes out nearly perfect. I mean, I haven't tested every single picture and compared them. Like, I haven't tried to scientifically measure it, but if I put it at 60, I'm 99.9% there in terms of getting the fisheye barrel correction done. It's under the distortion correction thing. I'll pull it up real quick. Oh, Ben is here. Next week you're shooting a review. Okay, so Ben's going to do the EM1X review next week. So look for that on his channel. And it says here EM1. Why isn't Photolab coming up? EM1 Mark III allows to download RAW files to smartphone or tablet. I use Lightroom on iPad Mini 11 when traveling. Works fine for me. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's kind of slow, but ultimately you're not putting any wear and tear on anything except the battery when you do it via Wi-Fi, right? You're not putting wear and tear on the SD card slot or the USB port. You're just putting it on the battery, basically. Assuming the Wi-Fi card in the camera has basically an indefinite lifespan. Uh, and then let me put this up, and I'm going to come back to this real quick. I'll come back to that. Uh, Oh, I was shooting with the TG5 this past week. Man, that's an awesome little camera. But okay, so here's my fisheye, right? Stuff. Uh, let me pull one from Alexandria. So this is a good example right here, right? So here's a fisheye image. In DxO. You just go to the corrections here, and then distortion, and you can see it has a fisheye specifically for fisheye. And in this case, I have it dialed in at 65. That's a little bit too much. Yeah, 61. Yeah, 60 to my eye looks perfect. Maybe 61. Yeah, 61 is about right for this. And then I just click the automatic perspective to straighten the lines out, then automatically crop that in. And now I have a perfectly corrected image from the TT Artisans. So there's the before, there's the after, right? Okay. And Rick's asking, would you agree that post-processing is becoming a much bigger job age-wise than the photography will soon be called image processors instead of photo. Okay. So basically, is the post-processing harder than doing the actual photo taking? Um, that's tough call. Um, I think for professionals that are working, it's it's 50-50, right? 50% you have to know how to take a good picture. And then 50% is, processing. Now in terms of time, job for job, right? Yeah, I can finish a photo job in an hour, hour and a half, but the post processing can take me 3-4 hours, sometimes longer, before I can deliver a final product. So when you're looking at terms of timing, um, yeah, post processing is definitely more time consuming. Um, with respect to, if you're not looking at it in terms of time, right, but in terms of skill, the years and years of skill that a professional will have, assuming they've been shooting for years and years, there's no substitute for that in post processing. So if I, if somebody with no photography skills went out and shot the same thing I did, let's say we're doing that property, right? If somebody that does landscape photography, they're very competent, right? And I'd say, okay, you're a great landscape photographer, but let's see how you do with real estate photography. Go do this property, right? They're not going to have the skill set to properly take the image to begin with. I don't care how good they are at post processing, they will never be able to deliver a decent image to a client because the original, garbage in, garbage out, the original image is not anywhere near where it needs to be to begin the post processing. So you have to shoot uh, with the plan to post process the image. Not too dissimilar from a very simple example would be like exposing to the right. Nobody shoots exposed to the right without planning to post process that image. And in that case, almost exactly 50-50. It doesn't take any longer to take the picture than the post-processing image that was, exposed to the right. But if you take that up a level to where you're professionally shooting on a regular basis, um, I'd still argue it's 50-50 in terms of, you have to have the right skill set and uh, the right images. You have to be able to take the right kind of images so that you can post-process them. And then post-processing, the reason it's so time consuming, if it's only photos, like I spend an hour shooting photos and another 30 minutes doing video. If it's only the photo part, um, the post-processing, most of that time, if it takes me 2 hours to post-process 1 hour of photo shooting, most of that time is the computer doing all the work. I just select all, click edit, export. And that can take like 30, 40 minutes right there. And then I go in and I start editing, and that can take another 34 minutes. So I'm up to about an hour and a half, give or take, in post processing just the images. And then when I do video, video also has to be shot with the intent to post process. Then the post processing can take a long time, but that's video. Video just takes forever. It takes me all day to make a YouTube video for 10 minutes. It takes me 3 hours to make a 2 minute YouTube video for a client typically. So I would say this statement is true in that it is taking a much bigger percentage of our time, if not more time, to do the post processing than actually taking the photos and video. But in terms of skill set, you have to be just as good at taking pictures as you are at editing. And I would argue you need to be better at taking pictures than you are at editing. Because if you take a good picture to begin with, you don't have to worry too much about the editing. And a good example is, uh, the DC Arboretum here. All these images are straight out of camera JPEG, you know, and I just used the whatchamacallit, the dramatic tone 2 filter, and I haven't done any processing. See, I can click reset, nothing's happening because this is the original image. Um, and I didn't have to do any editing, right? I was happy with how this came out. The only thing I might do is if I'm curious, I might want to see what it looks like in black and white, which I think is also pretty nice. But uh, in that example, oh, you didn't see. I just did all that explaining and you didn't see anything. Sorry. What I was referring to is this folder here, this image here. This is a straight out of camera JPEG that I took with the TG5. You know, split second to take the picture and no editing, no post processing. So this is a case where, taking the picture was all of the work, and you didn't have to do, post processing was zero basically. Um, and you know, all of the images, these first four, I did edit a little bit because there was a little bit of grain, but everything from here, like this image and this image here, I post processed a little bit out of the TG5. But the original straight out of camera JPEG is this one, right? Uh, I could just as easily use this image as I did the other and not have to do any work. But I wanted to bring out the lighting a little bit better. Well, this is actually a different image, but it's essentially the same. Um, so there's no editing here, right? Here's the straight out of camera JPEG, frame within a frame composition. You know. Uh, okay, let's see. Oh, Marco's came in. How you doing, Marco? Um, Let me scroll up because that was a while ago. I was jibber jabbering a long time on that. Okay, now I'm back. Uh, Rick thinks the WoW cameras might be a massive disappointment. Yeah, we'll never know till we know. Um, when the M1 Mark III came out, it didn't get a lot of love from the critics, right? But I think it was a significant upgrade over the M1 Mark II in all the ways that I would appreciate. But we'll see what the WoW camera does. Yeah, what if OM system wants to include DX on noise reduction? That would be interesting. The only challenge would be it would take so much computing power, it would drain the battery for every image. Or you would get 5 or 6 images that are awesome, but then the battery would be dead. Um, maybe the price will be wow, that is expensive. I guarantee that is a true statement. That will be without a doubt. It'll be wow for the price. I know that. And the profile you found, I think it's yeah, in Lightroom I use the Nikon 10.5 millimeter. It's a DX lens uh, in in Lightroom because Lightroom doesn't have a fisheye barrel distortion slider. It has a distortion slider, but it's not for fisheye. It's just barrel distortion. So you have to pick a profile, and I found that worked really well. On the TT Artisan 7.5 millimeter fisheye lens, just for reference. That's the profile I used in Lightroom. And Dave is asking, have you heard what the life cycle of batteries for the M12 is? Uh, Typically, lithium ion batteries are 500 charges. Um, I'm sure I'm near that, if not past that, on at least one of the batteries, but because I've had the camera since 2016, the M1 Mark II, and the battery's still good. So I'm probably very close to that. I doubt 1,000 cycles, but I don't know officially what it is. Anyone have the 7 to 14 f2.8? Oh, yeah, if anyone has that, let Ben know. I don't have that lens. And John Truman is in the house. How you doing, John? Uh, Logan says that post-processing represents 70% of my time. Yeah. Like I said, it can be time consuming, right? Now, post-processing should not be about trying to fix an image that, you know, to make up for bad photography technique. Um, I mean, when you go out and take pictures, you always want to take the best image you can, and uh, and then just do a little bit of editing, if any, right? And Lawrence says the landscape shooter would wait for the golden hour to photograph the building, thus limiting their time available for real estate shooting. That's funny. Actually, uh, if the client wants like a night shot with all that, I charge extra. No one's ever asked me to do a night shot, i.e., sort of golden hour. You don't want it so dark that everything looks weird, but you want it dark enough so that you can see the lights coming from inside the building to outside, but enough light outside so you can still see the building itself, right? So you would probably go to twilight hour, like just blue hour. Blue hour is perfect for real estate. Now, Randy, 2 hours of processing, but 8 hours to get footage. Yeah, Randy goes on these long drives on his channel, right? And I haven't watched your new drone video. I saw the thumbnail. I just haven't watched it yet since you got your drone fixed or replaced. Uh, yeah, I mean, you can make videos very simple, right? And not have to do a lot of editing. But, the one I finished this morning, man, it took me a while. Oh, it's soft fun. It has been a while. How you doing? uh, and anyone concerned about firmware updates for Olympus cameras going forward? Not at this point. I'm not too concerned because everything seems to be moving along. Um, but yeah, there's always some concern. I think, regardless of the camera company, but I don't see any reason to be concerned at this point, personally. And agreed, image processing is a technician's job, whereas a photographer's is a mix of artist and technician, which we term as craftsman. But my question was about time labor investment. Yeah, time labor investment, definitely professionally, it's more time consuming, the editing side, for the kind of work that I do. Um, I can't imagine, like I wonder, like somebody like Thomas Heaton or James Popsis, these landscape guys go out and take a picture. They might spend hours and hours hiking, yada yada, just to get one picture. And then how much time did they spend editing that picture? One of the videos I saw of Thomas Heaton editing a photo, it didn't take him long at all, post processing. But again, he took a good picture to begin with, right? But for the kind of, if that was the kind of photography I did all the time, like if I was a hardcore landscape guy or sports action guy, I don't know how much editing I would really need to spend. But when I do real estate photography, the editing is very time consuming because I have to blend at the least 3 images together. And that's the most common. I do 3, but sometimes it's 4, 5, 6 images together to get one picture, and a lot of brushing and pasting, um, well, that's just shifting yeah, what Ben is saying is that's shifting the noise reduction work back to the computer, right? Um, yeah, that's definitely true. $5,500 for a Z9, nice camera, but man, you basically have to, have more money than brains, or well, that's a mean thing to say. Some people, they just want nice stuff, so they buy, like Leica, right? They just buy nice stuff. Um, but I couldn't justify $5,500 for a camera. I couldn't do it, even with my professional work. Like I said, I could do what I do with an EM10 Mark II. And I would argue any photographer can do what they need to do with an EM10 Mark II or an EM5 Mark II if they need weather sealing. You can get any photo job done, honestly. And Stanislav says, I compared camera JPEG with when I vigilantly configure JPEG output curves profile. With that, I get from Lightroom ACR. Camera makes the pic from flat with more coarse grading. Mm, well, I know when I compare the camera output, the JPEGs and the art filters, and if I do any tweaking like you're talking about, is never as good as I can do in post processing, especially with Photolab. That said, um, I'm quite content with the JPEG output, and I don't feel the need to continue editing them, except maybe crop, tilt, straighten stuff, right? Um, it's only the professional side that I have to really bust my ass. Yeah, if I had the bucks, yeah, me too. I would like to get the GFX 100, right? The one that I think what's his name bought one. Forget his name. He was shooting Olympus. I'm sure he still does, but uh, Joe, I can't remember his last name, but he's an amazing guy, really, and he bought the Fujifilm, the 100 megapixel version, the one that just came out, and obviously really loves it. And the other guy, there's another guy, Nigel, I think has a GFX. I don't know which one he has. I think he has the 100 megapixel one also. He's really happy with it. Uh, one day, I mean, I would have to. I just, excuse me, I just can't see myself spending that kind of money for a camera just to use it once in a while. Um, like that lens, the 300 f4. I just don't. I don't have that kind of scratch. I'm like you, Randy. It's like it would have to be if my job depended on it. Maybe not Joe Edelman. Joseph Ellis. Joe Ellis. Yeah, Joe Ellis. Amazing guy. Joe Edelman shoots, Olympus, and he's also amazing. Joseph Ellis um, really is he would have an awesome live stream. I don't know if it's worth his time because these live streams, there's no money in it. There's no new subscriber. I mean, me doing these live streams, I do it just because I enjoy them, uh, and I have the time. But Joe Ellis, if he did a live stream on doing business in the U.S., particularly wedding business or event photography, he would be freaking amazing. He is extremely. He's very smart, very experienced, and um, and an awesome photographer on top of that. He has, I have tremendous amount of respect for Joe Ellis, as well as everyone, really. Robin Wong, Peter Forsgaard, Matty Salanto, Jimmy Chang. I mean, all these guys are really amazing photographers on top of being, educators and teachers and things like that. It's just a matter of who has time to come out and really teach everything that they know. I consider myself just kind of average, maybe a little above average. Like I'm a little better than a lot of beginners when it comes to general photography. And I know a lot about Olympus cameras and the settings, but I'm no Peter Forsgaard, Robin Wong, Jimmy Chang kind of guy. Those guys are just way up here, and I'm kind of, I'm just kind of here. Uh, and my subscription numbers kind of show that too, right? But I do what I enjoy, and I like to share what I enjoy with everyone and try to help people as much as I can when I can. So that's why I'm here. But yeah, I'm not any of those guys. Those guys are so much better than me. Mark Denny, not Nigel. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's Mark Denny. Um, he's the guy. He's the guy with the GFX. Thank you. I'll catch a clip of his thing every now and then. Medium format used to be heavy, slower to focus, mostly model shoots. Um, Speak of the devil. Hey, Walter. Hey, I'm right in the middle of a live stream, just so you know. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, just tune in. All right. Well, Walter will be online soon. Uh, yeah, medium format, I would argue, is still that way, right? Still big, heavy. My God, I was shooting my freaking GW690, and that's a big camera. That was just, that's a monster. But it was fun to shoot. And oh, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Um, and Randy as well. Thank you. I try. That's all I can say. uh, no, it's not my mom, Dave. And let's see. Is there a rule for the lowest handheld shutter speed for focal length used on OMDIS? It's easy for film lenses, reciprocal minimum shutter speed. I would use the same as the film, honestly. Um, let's say for example, 50, 25. Yeah, okay. Let's get our analogies right. If I'm shooting with the 25 millimeter lens on a micro four thirds, that's a 50 millimeter equivalent. The reciprocal rule is like shoot at 1/100th of a second, right? Double the millimeters. So we're at 1/100th of a second. Now with IBIS, supposedly you get, say, 5 stops better, right? And assuming action, motion, blur, all of that is not a concern. You're just taking a picture of a static object. In theory, you should be able to go 5 stops, which would be what? 50, 25, 13, 6. In theory, you could go down to 1/3 of a second handheld. So yeah, you can. There are people that I can hold. If I'm really rock steady and nothing's moving, I might be able to hold 1/3 of a second. I know I've done 2 seconds handheld. So yeah, no problem. But there's no rule of thumb. For me, I always try to shoot just like the film days, double the shutter speed. At the very least, the shutter speed's got to match the focal length. So meaning if I'm shooting with a 25 millimeter lens, which is really a 50, I wouldn't shoot less than 1/50th of a second if I can help it. Um, for general photography. But if I had to shoot a longer shutter speed, I think the 5 stop image stabilization is a legitimate number. You can go down 5 stops, whatever that number needs to be. Like I think I estimated what, a half a second, third of a second. You could do it with an Olympus camera, but I wouldn't use that as a rule of thumb. We need more club hats. Thanks. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Oh, sorry for the phone call. It's okay. Yeah, Walter's here. That's who was calling me just now. Uh, and Andrew says also for MFT stuff, check out Craig. Oh yeah, Craig Roberts. It's been a while. Has he made any videos lately? Let me take a look. Craig Roberts is pretty awesome. It's E6 vlogs, right? Um, I typed in EV6, E6. There he is. So E6 vlogs. Oh yeah, he's still cranking out here. 2 weeks ago, 6 months. So, yeah, so it's been like 6 months, and then he had this one 2 weeks ago. But he has plenty of stuff. Lots of good stuff. He's one of the best. It'd be cool to get him on as a guest, wouldn't it? So if you're watching, Craig, come on out, dial in. Oh, that's something I haven't done in a while. Is I haven't done my live stream guest thing in a while. Maybe I'll do that next week. It's getting a little late to start now. Where's my I don't want to accidentally close my app again. And let's see. If I were still in business of teaching, Rob Trek would be now. Oh, thank you, Rick. 100% natural. Yeah, I need to get my teaching classes back. I've kind of since I lost that first office space I was using, I haven't found another one. I mean, I found one, but I haven't gone out to see it yet. And Andrew says it's top notch. My Wavix, thank you, thank you. And Randy says 3.4 million views. Wow, that's a lot. 3.4 million views. And what's really special is your interaction with the community, including the Flickr. I haven't found that same level anywhere else. I haven't been looking, but I think Robin is pretty active on Facebook because I see notices every now and then there. I don't know, but you're right. I don't think Peter and Maddie and Jimmy interact quite as much, but like I said, they have day jobs, right? They're probably really busy. I got nothing to do but jibber jabber with you guys. Oops, wrong button here. And Dave says you have to remember perspective. You aren't trying to make professionals more dangerous. You're dealing with the mob and help. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's all relative, right, to your audience. And what video are you talking about? Something Lauren mentioned. Oh, Lauren is addressing my. Let me see what Lauren has to say, because Lauren is an awesome photographer too. The limitations are always about the motion of what you're imaging. In street terms, I would say 1/400th of a second for scenic is where things blowing around, birds in flight, water motion. Yeah, I mean, shutter speed is always relative to what you need to get a picture of. But if we're talking about static objects, um, you can hand hold a lot longer. But for general photography, I would stick to the reciprocal rule and just use whatever shutter speed makes sense and then adjust according to the action. If it's fast moving and you want to freeze it, you got to use a faster shutter speed. If it's static and you want lower ISO, you can use a slower shutter speed. I mean, so the rule of thumb is I would still go with the reciprocal rule, even with all the IBIS and everything we have now. Thanks, Logan. And you understand. That's because I speak so slow. I think that's why I have such a big foreign audience, non-English speakers. Well, let me rephrase that. English is not their first language, right? And I do get a lot of viewers where English is not their first language, but I speak so slowly that they can actually follow along, right? Um, yeah, and the Flickr community page is my first go-to. Yeah, I like checking out what you guys post there. I'll post one every now and then, but it's more fun to see what you guys are doing. Um, and the Flickr thing is down here. If you go to my Flickr page, you'll see groups, and then you'll see Rob Trek Community. If you guys, for those of you not familiar with it already, um, it's nice Rob's wisdom for free. You're too kind. Um, you're 59, John? Wow, that's amazing. I would have never I would have thought you're in your 40s. And I say that because John and I have done Zoom call together once, and I'd easily thought I didn't think you'd be older than me. That's shocking. And not just speaking, yeah, more thorough. I try not to skip anything. Yes, I love you, Rob. Thank you. Love you too, John. In the most heterosexual way possible. Um, John is just a kid, right? All right. So let me end with a couple of things. So I still haven't been able to um, talk about the laundromat thing yet. For whatever reason, the listing is still delayed, but I do want to talk about that once that's listed publicly. I want to talk about the photography and video I did for that. And um, Peter and Maddie, they're doing. I've been catching up on their videos lately, and they're plugging their workshop, right? Where you go there for a week. So definitely go check out whatever they're up to in terms of their workshop, because if I wasn't so adverse to traveling, I would love to go and be in a workshop with them, not as a teacher, but as a student. Because as you know, they're both, like I said, excellent photographers, and they really have a passion and to teach what they know to other people, uh, and to pass on this passion of photography to others so that they don't get frustrated, right? With the technical side or the creative side of photography, they really want to help you. So, if I recall, it was 1999, right? Like $2,000, but that includes a lot of meals and a week and a lot of individual time. Check out the details. I think, if you have the means and the time to go, uh, definitely, if you can, I would go to the workshop uh, that Peter and Maddie are doing. And they didn't ask me to say anything about it. Okay, just so you know, probably don't even know I'm saying anything. But um, yeah, if you don't have any hesitate, if you have the means and the time to go, don't hesitate at all. If to go to that workshop, whatever your level of photography is, I think it would be time well spent, time and money well spent. Um, Lassie's 82. Wow, my goodness. And yes, this is live stream episode 200, right? I guess that's what do they call it? Some kind of marker, right? Um, Time to reflect. I don't know. Maybe I'll reflect next time. I'm just too tired now. All right, guys. You guys have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving. And it's, as always, it was good to see everyone again. So thanks again for spending a little time with me today. And I will be back next week, without a doubt. God willing, I should say.